Hello, everyone. This is James Song here. Great to see you. Thanks for watching my video. Today, we have a listening lesson. It's a conversation part of the TOEFL listening test. So let's listen to the passage and write some notes. Let's go.
Listen to a conversation between a student and his biology professor.
Well, you know, I'm writing my paper about whales and the paths they travel as they swim through the ocean, their migration patterns.
Yes, I remember.
And, well, I was thinking about it, and I realized I don't understand how they hold their breath underwater. It's a little crazy for me to be writing a paper about migration patterns without actually knowing how they stay underwater for so long.
Did you do any research to find out how they do it?
Yeah, I did. I searched on the internet, and there was a lot of information about whales, their habitats, the way they communicate, you know, their songs. But if there was anything about whales and how they hold their breath, I missed it. I've got a bunch of books. Actually, I've got so much information, it's a little overwhelming.
I'm surprised there was nothing about it in any of those books.
Well, to be honest, I've only skimmed them so far. I'm still working on finding sources.
Okay. I know I encouraged everyone in class to look at a substantial number of sources, but I don't want you to get overwhelmed. Looking at a number of sources gives you a good knowledge base, but students only have a limited amount of time to work on each paper. I don't expect you to read a dozen books on whales for this assignment. Focus on just a few.
Okay, thanks.
You know, since you're already here, I can give you a quick summary of how whales hold their breath underwater. It's just a matter of certain adaptations in their anatomy, specifically in their circulatory system.
So the blood flow is what makes the difference?
Yes, and in a couple of ways. First, blood makes up a larger share of a whale's weight than in other mammals.
So they can store more oxygen because they have more blood?
Yes, but that's only part of it. They also have a greater capacity than land animals to store oxygen in their blood.
So how does having more oxygen in their blood help them stay underwater longer?
It's the way the whale's blood carries oxygen to the rest of its body. Whales carefully conserve their oxygen when underwater in a couple of ways. When a whale dives, its metabolic rate drops, causing its heartbeat to slow down. And the blood flow to its muscles and some of its non-vital organs, like its kidneys, is also cut off. A whale's muscles and non-vital organs are able to function without oxygen for an extended period of time.
I see. Well, now I can concentrate on my topic.
Okay, so did you get it? It was a little bit fast, you know, the speed at which, excuse me, speed at which the speakers spoke in this passage. I thought it was a little bit faster, maybe 10%, 20% than other passages where sometimes speakers spoke kind of slowly, right? So let's go through based on my notes, right? What was the passage about? So these students come to the professor and say, I'm writing a paper about whale in their migration patterns, right? And professor says, I remember. And the student says, it's kind of crazy. I'm paraphrasing, okay? The contents, meanings are the same, but I'm not repeating exactly the same words as in the listening passage, okay? I am paraphrasing into my vocabulary. So student says, it's kind of crazy for him to think that he's trying to write a paper about whales migration when he doesn't even know how the whales hold their breath underwater, right? So and the professor says, did you do some research about it then to find out? And the student says, he went on the internet, there was a lot of information, but he couldn't find any holding breath information by whale. And also he looked at some books, but he was overwhelmed. Overwhelmed means, as you know, he couldn't understand it because it was too much or too hard, not really able to digest it. He was overwhelmed by the information. So couldn't really understand it. It was too much or too hard, right? And professor kind of puzzles, right? Like, really, you didn't find any information about whales holding breath underwater in the books? Really? There was nothing there? And students kind of confess, saying, I only skimmed it. Okay, skimmed means like went through it quickly. Okay, I didn't really carefully read all the words in detail, just skimmed through. Okay, so and professor responds by saying she encourages students to look at many sources to, study hard, but she doesn't want students to be overwhelmed, right? And she understands students have only limited time on writing the paper. So, she would like students to focus on just few sources, right? And the professor offers, since you're here, to the students, I can give you a quick summary of your question, right? Okay, quick summary of how the whales successfully hold breath underwater. I can tell you. That's what professor says. And it is just the adaptation of the whales, especially its circulatory system. So how to breathe, circulatory, like a tube from the heart for animals to breathe, circulatory system. One, the whale simply has more blood compared to other animals. Like, for his weight, the whales have lots of blood, and having lots of blood help them hold breath underwater, right? So that's one reason. And second is capability. So whales have abilities to store a lot of oxygen, store oxygen well in their blood, right? And so that's how they are able to hold breath underwater, because they have ability to store lots of oxygen in their blood, so they can hold breath. Okay, it helps them to be able to hold breath underwater because they have a lot of oxygen in their blood. So how is this achieved? They carefully conserve oxygen in their blood by, when they dive, meaning go underwater, and when they have to hold breath, their metabolism goes down, so their heartbeats slow down, okay? So they are able to hold breath for longer. And the second reason is that they don't supply a lot of oxygen to the muscles and especially non-vital organs. So vital organs for human would be heart, brain, liver, kidney, and so forth, right? So non-vital organs, not vital, not important, not critical organs, whales do not provide a lot of oxygen, okay? Actually, they say they cut off oxygen to non-vital organs. So not heart, but non-vital, okay? Organs, they cut off their supply of oxygen, okay? When they're underwater. So that's how they conserve oxygen in their blood. So this is how they able to hold breath for a long time. So two things, right? Two body paragraphs here, right? First, they simply have larger amount of blood, larger share of blood compared to their body weight. And second, how they're able to conserve oxygen in their blood, in two ways, okay? And it finishes by these non-vital organs. Even the oxygens are cut off, they still function, means they still work. So whales do not die, okay? Even oxygens are cut off to these non-vital organs. These non-vital organs work without oxygen, okay? Yeah, so that's it. And you can always listen to the passage again and try to write notes again and again. You can do it 2 or 3 times to improve your note-taking and also improve your listening skills, because I gave you a summary, and I cover the listening passage, I think very thoroughly now, okay? Okay, so now we understood the listening passage pretty much completely. Let's solve some questions. All right, question 18. So there are 5 questions in this conversation passage, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. So let's look at question 18. Why does the man go to see the professor? To discuss or ask, he's not really asking her to tell him how whales hold their breath, okay? This is a question he has. He cannot find information to, he cannot find the right source to answer his question, which is how whales hold their breath, okay? He cannot find it anywhere. So that's the question he's asking to the professor. Basically, where can I find the information to know how whales hold their breath for a long time, right? Okay, because he cannot find it anywhere and he still doesn't know. Okay, A, to find out how to distinguish between different types of whale songs, not even mentioned. B, to request permission to change the topic, not even mentioned. To discuss the difference between using the internet and using books to find sources. So if you chose C, you are saying basically the man is asking professor about, professor, what do you think about using internet and using books to find resource? Which one's better? Or what do you think, using internet as a resource and books as a resource? What do you think? So that's C. So it's totally wrong and irrelevant to the question. It's not answering the question at all. D, to get help locating, find it, some information, how the whale able to hold breath underwater, for his paper. He's writing a paper, right? Migration pattern of whales. So this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? He wants to ask the professor, where can I find information for my question? Okay. All right, question 18, the answer is D. Question 19, what is the topic of man's paper? Whales migratory pattern. Okay, it's here. All right. Professor, I'm writing a paper about whales migratory pattern. Yes, I remember. Okay, so this part here. Hey, how whales hold their breath? That's his question. This is not the title or topic of man's paper. He said, I am writing a paper about whales migration, but I thought that since I am trying to write a migration patterns of whales, it's crazy to think that I don't even know how the whales hold their breath underwater. So how can I write this paper? This is, at least something I need to know, right? So that's not the topic of the paper. Okay, so big trick. All right, B, whales migration pattern. Yep. Okay, that's the topic of his paper. So always, always, always answer the question. They may give you right information or correct information, but not for this question. Okay, so you cannot be careless. You have to focus and read the question and answer the question that is being asked. Okay. C, characteristics of whale habitats. Nope. The difference between circulatory system. Nope. So question 19, as written in the notes, I'm writing a paper about whales migration patterns. So answer to question 19 is B. Question 20, what is the professor's attitude towards the man's question about how whales hold their breath? Okay. What's professor's attitude? Okay, let's look at the answer choices to get some clue. So she thinks, professor is she here, she thinks he does not need to spend a lot of time looking for the answer. Maybe, because she says, I encourage for students to read a lot of sources, but that doesn't mean you should be overwhelmed. I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I understand you have only limited time, so just focus on few sources. And she offers to give him the answer to his question. She doesn't ask him to look at this source, right? She just tells him, right? So maybe she thinks the student should not spend too much time looking for the answer to this question. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. Okay, B. She is surprised because she has already addressed this question in class. If you chose B, you are saying professor already told him the answer to his question in the class, so professor is a little surprised. Like, how come you do not know this? I already told you. Not the answer. She dismissed it as unimportant. It's too extreme. Like, she is saying she dismissed, like almost ignored or told him that he should not think about it, right? That's dismiss, okay? Or just ignore and move on. So for C to be answered, she is basically saying, oh, don't worry about it. Don't waste your time. It's not important. Stop thinking about it. That's C. So this part is not C, more A. But also, if C was right, she wouldn't spend time and tell him about what he wants to know. She wouldn't have done that if she dismissed it as unimportant, right? So C is not right. So let's look at D. Maybe D is better than A or not. She is pleased. She is happy about it. She's glad that has a plan to obtain the answer himself. He, okay, there's typo here, right? So she is happy that the student has a plan to obtain the answer himself. He doesn't. He doesn't have the plan. Like, he's lost. Like, I looked at it on the internet, and although I skimmed, I just read some books, but professor, like, where can I find this information? That's what he implies, what he is implying. So this is not true. Okay? I mean, if this was true, he wouldn't ask professor this in the first place. It doesn't make sense, because if he already has a plan to get the information by himself, why bother saying this and asking this to the professor? It doesn't make sense, right? So A is the answer, and the source of the answer can be found from this part in note-taking and the listening passage. Okay, so question 20, the answer is A. Next question, question 21. Why does the professor mention limited time students have to complete their papers? Two things, I guess. She wants to tell the student that she understands. So don't try to look at everything or so many books and get overwhelmed. Just focus on few books only, all right? Don't try to look at as many books as possible, right? Focus on few relevant books. Don't go crazy and understand the material because you don't have a lot of time. So if you had unlimited time, you could look at many resources. But since you have only limited time to write papers, I understand, okay? Just focus on few resources, okay? All right, kind of similar, not similar, but you know, along the same line as question 20. Okay, let's look at answer choices. 2A, to suggest that looking at research on the internet is a good way to save time. No. She's not saying, look at internet because it will save your time. She's not saying that. B, to point out that the library has reduced the amount of time it is open each day. Well, what is it saying? Okay, she's saying, oh, be careful because library is reducing their opening time every day. So you better spend as much time as possible today in the library to find that information because tomorrow opening hours will be reduced compared to today. And it's going to get worse every day. So you will have no time to research in the library. That's ridiculous. So that's what B is saying. I'm not saying that's the answer. So B is out. C, to indicate her expectations for the amount of research to be done for the paper. Yeah, okay. She doesn't expect students to go crazy and, you know, get the information from so many sources. Just focus on few, because I understand you only have limited time. All right, so C is perfect. D, to emphasize the importance of starting to write a paper a couple of weeks. It's not about the timing, guys, right? At all. This question is not about like timing of writing paper, when to start. It's nothing to do with that, right? So question 21, the correct answer is C. Okay, moving right along, question 22. According to the professor, how does a whale conserve oxygen while underwater? How does a whale do that? The metabolism goes down, slows down. So his heartbeat becomes slower. That's one way. And second way is cut off or reduce amount of oxygen to send to muscles and non-vital organs. Meaning, underwater, whales only gives oxygen to vital organs only, okay? It cuts off to non-vital organs and reduce amount of oxygen to the muscle, okay? So its heart rate decreases. Yeah, that's the outcome, that's the result. And cause is because its metabolism slows down. So heartbeats also slows down, means heart rate, the rate of heartbeats goes down. Okay, so heart beats slowly, slower means heart rate decreases, same thing. So it's choose two answers question. Okay, its lung capacity temporarily increases. I hope so. Not true, not mentioned. C, it slow the pace of its swimming. It start to like kind of swim slower. No, not mentioned. D better be the answer. Blood flow, so supply of oxygen, like blood flow to certain organs. Okay, so it cuts off to the non-vital organs. Okay, so blood flow, that would include supply of oxygen, right? Okay, so to conserve oxygen, blood flow to non-vital organ is cut off. So this is the paraphrase of that, right? So this comes from here. Okay, and answer A comes from this part. Okay, heart rate decreased, heartbeats slows down. I just remembered. Okay, didn't have time to write it down. Okay, and metabolism, heart slows down. Okay, so question 22, you can find the answers from this part in listening passage if you want to listen to it again, or if you want to just catch it from your notes, it's from this part here, A and D. So answer to question 22, two answers are A and D. Okay, that's the passage and all 5 questions. So thanks very much for watching my video. I really appreciate it. And let's keep improving, keep studying to aim for higher TOEFL score. Thank you very much, everyone. See you in the next video. Bye.